All right, here we go. Then we got 10, 11, 12, possibly more. All right, we're going to start out with number 10. Okay, so remember our, don't forget our sine, cosine come in this form. This is our general form, b x minus c plus d. Okay, so remember our a represents our amplitude. So in this, the absolute value of a gives me 3. Here, the b value is not factored out, so I'm going to have to factor that out. Okay, so now we need to do 1/4 pi over 4 divided by 1/2, or pi over 4 times 2 over 1, right? Multiplied by the reciprocal. Well, that's 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. So plus pi over 2. All right, we have to factor out our b value so it's easy to see. So then our horizontal shift is easier to see as well. Okay, my period is 2 pi over 1/2. All right, multiplied by the reciprocal, you should get 4 pi. Okay, 2 pi times 2 over 1. All right. Intervals. Our period, 4 pi, divided by 4. What gives me pi? Horizontal shift. Now I can see that horizontal shift. I should get left, pi over 2. My vertical shift, down 1. So first thing I want to do is graph my midline. I move down 1. So my midline is now a -1. Okay. Amplitude is 3. 1, or -1, -2, -3, -4. That's 3 units down. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So my maximum is going to be at 2. All right. My horizontal shift was left pi over 2. Okay, so I'm going to start at negative pi over 2. Now my intervals are pi. So I do negative pi over 2 plus pi. Well, remember we need a common denominator. So that's 2 pi over 2, which gives me pi over 2. We are going to skip the axis, right? We're going to skip 0. Okay, because we're adding a full pi. All right, so my next tick mark doesn't come until pi over 2. So we're not going to have a tick mark at 0 this time. I'm going to add 2 pi over 2 again. All right, we got from 2 periods. Oh, buckets, got to write small. 3 pi over 2. Add 2 pi over 2 again. 5 pi over 2. I'm going to go up, down, up, down. Add 2 pi over 2 again. Okay, 7 pi over 2. Again. 9 pi over 2. Again. 11 pi over 2. Again. 13 pi over 2. Again. 15 pi over 2. Now, the only reason I know that it goes all the way up to 15 pi over 2 because I've done this before. All right, I did it before on my answer key. Okay, you may not be able to tell right away when to stop. All right, so maybe plot 1. All right, so I got 1 here. Okay, remember sine starts at the midline. Okay, normally sine will go midline to the maximum. Well, since there's a flip, I forgot to write that flip. All right, I go down to -4. Back to the midline, up to 2, midline, back down, up to the midline, maximum, back to the midline. How do I know when to stop? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Did I miscount? I might have. Yes, we should have 10. Here we go. So midline. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. There is our sine graph. Okay. Next one, we're talking about a tangent. Okay, we're going to make one period of the tangent graph here. Okay, we're graphing one period. Well, my vertical stretch or shrink is always my A value. All right, the A value here, whoops, is 1/2. So my vertical stretch is 1/2. Okay. My period, I don't see my B value, so I have to factor it out. When I divide 2 pi, I can't divide 2 by 3, so I'll just write it as 2 pi over 3. So my period is pi over 3. Intervals. Remember, tangent, we only use pi, not 2 pi, just 1 pi. All right, pi over 3 over 4 is pi over 3 times 1 over 4, which is pi over 12 for my intervals. My horizontal shift is right 2 pi over 3, which I'm going to plot that right away. Okay, I'm going to plot that right away, and that's going to be my middle point. Right there is my middle point. Okay, that's that 2 pi over 3. All right, 2 pi over 3. Okay, and you'll see why vertical shift there's none. Why does it switch back and forth? And then there's a flip because it's a negative. So we're like that. Okay, so here we go. So remember, when we talked about tangent, we have two vertical asymptotes. The first one, or one of them appears 2 units after our original point. One appears 2 units before our horizontal shift. Okay, our intervals are pi over 12. So I have 2 pi over 3 plus pi over 12. Well, I want to convert this into pi over 12, which means I'm going to have to multiply by 4 and 4, so that gives me 8 and 12. Okay, so that's 8 pi over 12, which gives me 9 pi over 12. 8 pi over 12 plus pi over 12 gives me 9 pi over 12. I reduce that, and I get 3 pi over 4. Okay. Add pi over 12, I get 10 pi over 12. Reduce that, 5 pi. I'll reduce. What? 6. Why did I say 2? 6. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. 6. Okay. Now, that's one of my vertical asymptotes because I went 2 units to the right of my horizontal shift. Now I have to go 2 units to the left. So I'm going to subtract pi over 12 from 8 pi over 3. Why is this auto hiding? Oh my god. 8 pi over 12. Alright, so that'll give me, if I subtract, I'll get 7 pi over 12. Subtract again, I'll get 6 pi over 12, which is pi over 2. Now you notice I haven't drawn in my y-axis. Sorry, that's my other vertical asymptote, 2 units to the left. I haven't drawn my y-axis. I like to do that kind of at the end now, okay? Just so I can see out where is my line. So that's 1/2. That's negative 1/2. Alright? Remember, tangent, alright, goes up and down or up and down this way. Alright, so I can either have my curve either going to look like that or it's going to look like that. Okay, if I want the negative, it'll look like this. So I'll make a dot. Make a dot. My negative tangent starts up at my maximum and goes to the minimum. Okay, so it starts to fall. Alright, there's our tangent graph. Lastly, find 2 possible negative cosines. Okay. Well, in order to do this, I first need to identify where my midline is. I know my smallest possible value, my minimum is -4. My range goes from -4 to 2. So -4 to 2, well, that gives me 6. I travel 6 total units. All right. So the middle of 6 is 3. So 1, 2, 3. My midline is -1. Okay. So my vertical shift is down 1. All right. So I want 2 possible negative cosines. Remember, cosine starts at the maximum, goes back up to the maximum. All right, well, if I want negative, I'm going to start at my minimum, go all the way up and back to my minimum. Well, if you notice, to complete one full, my period is just pi. All right, to complete one full cosine, my period is just pi. Okay. My amplitude, if my midline is -1, my amplitude that we discussed earlier was, or I discussed earlier, was 3. To find my b value, 2 pi over b gives me my period. Well, my period is pi. So some of us may be able to do this in our head. That's fine. Multiply both sides by pi. 2 pi equals pi b. Divide by pi. B equals 2. Horizontal shift. Well, I'm looking at this blue graph. I don't shift at all. I don't. It's not happening. So my first possible answer is y equals -3 cosine of b is 2. 2x minus 1. Another possible answer, all right, right here to there. The only thing that's going to change now is my horizontal shift. I went left pi, y equals -3 cosine of 2 x plus pi minus 1. Another function right here. It's right there. Now, you only got to write 2. I'm going to write every possible, all right, every possible answer for you. So that's pi to the right, so minus pi minus 1. Last possible that I was able to find, let's go orange. Orange. Okay, tilted. Right here. Up, back, down. There. And then that'll make my shift 2 pi. So y equals -3 cosine of 2x plus 2 pi minus 1. Alright, those are those 3 graphs. Okay, I'm going to continue the rest on another video. Adios.